Good evening, everybody. Welcome to my live. And if you happen to be watching later, welcome to the replay. My name is Robin, and I'm with Robin's Egg Blue Creations, and I'm also an independent designer with Chalk Couture. It feels super good to be back. I had to take a little pause for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I came back to celebrate my 99th and my 100th episode. And then last week I had 12-hour days almost every day last week. So it feels good, really good to be back and really good to be creating again. So once you come on, say hi in the comments. Tell me where you are watching from. I want to let you know that I am using StreamYard to go live in 3 locations this evening. I'm live on my Facebook business page. I'm live on my YouTube channel, and I'm also live in my private Facebook group, the Robin's Egg Blue Creations Crafty Collab. If you happen to be watching in there, if you would allow StreamYard access to your profile name and pic, that way you show up under your name in my comments. If you don't allow StreamYard access, then you'll show up as Facebook user, and I don't know who to say hi to. I also tell you that I'm live in 3 locations because if you hear me refer to a comment that you don't see in your comment feed, that viewer may be watching and commenting from another platform, and I don't want you to get confused. So let's hop on over to the comments. I see that Jason is watching from the other side of the door. And we will see if anyone else comes on. You might also notice down in your comments, I now have access to stars. Please don't feel obligated to send stars, but if you do send stars, just know that all of the profits from any of those stars will be donated to charitable causes. Chalk Couture does partner with Watts of Love, and I hope to be telling you about that organization in the next couple of weeks, but they supply solar lighting to countries that may not have access to electricity and use kerosene primarily for their light. They also come into places that have experienced natural disasters, like when Puerto Rico had the hurricane. Watts of Love was able to go in and provide solar lighting when their infrastructure was down. So just to let you know that if you do happen to want to send stars to support my channel, that all of those proceeds will be donated to charity. So let's see. Jason says, I'm a star. Not really. I just happen to have access to stars these days. So I'm going to flip my camera over. Make sure that you are liking, subscribing, hitting that heart button. And if you wouldn't mind sharing this video, spread the chalk love around Facebook and YouTube, wherever you're watching from. And we will go ahead and get started. So I am using these Chalk Couture silkscreen reusable transfers. They are sticky backed, and they are reusable about 8 to 12 times, depending on how well you take care of them. These 2 happen to be size A 5x7 transfers. This one happens to be a size C, and it's a 12x18. Because these are reusable, and because I have not used this one primarily, this one is a new one from the spring catalog. I'm going to write the name on the back. That way I know when I'm done cleaning this transfer that this transfer goes on this backer sheet and that this is the back side. So this one is called Time to Eat. This one is Meals and Memories Made Here. And I've also written the name on it. And this one is called Good Eats. And I have not used this one at all. So I'm going to put, because I'm using this side, I will write it down there. And you'll notice that this transfer also has white lines. These are cut or score lines. So that means you can cut these sections apart. I like to keep my backer sheet intact, so I'm just going to score mine. So what I do is my fingers will cooperate. I just lift up a section of the transfer and just place your scissors or transfer trimmers along that line, and you can just score straight down that line. I prefer to do this instead of cutting my backer sheet apart. That way I have one backer sheet to keep track of as opposed to 5. But, I can't get a hold of that one. Just do it this way. So again, I'm just lifting it up and I'm just scoring across those lines. And I do some of them, I may cut apart these 3 sections down here. I may not. It just kind of depends on how I'm going to eventually store the transfer, because I store them based on what surface they go with. So we are going to be inking a project tonight. That means we're going to use the transfers, but instead of using chalk paste, we are going to use Chalk Couture ink. And my apologies, I didn't realize until after I had chosen this project that most of the ink is sold out. It is out of stock right now. But the cool thing is you can use acrylic paint with a fabric medium. I think Deco also has a fabric paint. You could use tulip paint. You could use speedball fabric ink. You don't just have to use the couture ink, although I really like the couture ink. You could purchase the transfers and use another inking medium with them. So I'm just cutting off the tags of these kitchen towels. So I have 2 mint colored towels and I have 2 lavender colored towels. So I think I'm going to use the Meals and Memories Made Here. I'm going to use the Time to Eat, but I'll probably leave off the tomato. And then I'm going to use the Good Eats from here, and I may just use the fork and spoon from this portion of the transfer. So, Chalk Couture does sell ink mats. They're just a sticky mat. All of mine have kind of lost their stick. I need to fix them. So, because mine are all not very sticky, I'm going to use one of my Cricut mats. They work just as well. They might stain a little bit, but that doesn't bother me. If it doesn't bother you, go ahead and use what you have. But I do have, oh wait, these are napkins. They'll work too. Yep, these look like they are napkins, but they'll actually work great. So I'm just gonna, I should probably iron them, but I'm gonna use my ink mat as kind of a cheater. So when you have things that have some lumps and bumps in them, like these these napkins have these fold lines, you can just kind of pull your fabric taut and it will stick to the sticky part of the mat and it will kind of flatten your material. The ink mats are great because it holds your fabric in place. It creates a barrier if your ink happens to seep through the back side. And the best thing is it kind of flattens out your surface. And if you've watched any amount of time, you know usually we fuzz transfers before we put on the chalk paste, but because I'm using fabric, I want as much contact between the transfer and the fabric as I can, so I am not going to fuzz. And technically, I prefer, if I'm going to do an ink project, then I will, the first time I use the transfer, I will ink with it so that I get the best adhesion possible. So I'm removing the backer sheet. And just going to try to kind of center it as best as I can. Guess I should have marked where the center might be. And I'm just literally eyeballing it. So I'm going to rub it down really good. I'm going to really burnish where I'm going to ink. I am going to cover up that tomato. And I'm just going to use some of the placement tape. And I'm going to cover that up, because I will inevitably forget that I don't want to ink that. I'm going to cover the whole thing because I'll forget and I'll accidentally ink up toward the top. Okay, so this is just like using chalk paste. I forgot to grab squeegees. The only thing is you want to be very careful when you're using ink that you don't have any rogue ink on your hands when you're touching your fabric project, because if you get any extra spots, it may not come off. Actually, no, we're fine. So you could mask all of this off. You could tape it off. I may run a piece of tape down the bottom just so I don't go off of the transfer. So I'm going to be using Storm on the mint napkins, and I'm going to be using Black Velvet on the purple napkins. And it's very similar to the chalk paste. It's just permanent, and it's heat set permanent once you're finished. But it's the same concept. You're just going to use your rubber squeegee. You're just going to get a little bit on your squeegee. Again, make sure you don't have any on your fingers, because if you put your hand on your fabric, it may not come off. The ink might not come off. Now, I try to go one direction, either up or down or side to side, because the more directions you go and the more swipes you take, the more of a chance you run having your ink bleed or your transfer bubbles. I'm just using a very light touch. I'm not pushing as hard as I would or pulling as hard as I would with the chalk paste. Ink is a slightly different consistency than the paste. A little bit more. Jason, are you referring to the color of the ink or the color of the napkin? If it's the color of the ink, this is that gray Storm. It's one of my favorite colors. I don't use it near enough, but I do like to use it. I haven't used it for a long time on a chalk paste project or an ink project. I'm going to move that a lot more out of the way. I'm going to grab a wipe because I'm going to check my fingers. You do have a little bit more work time, so I can kind of just let this sit. And it's not going to dry in the transfer like your chalk paste would. But what I'm doing is I'm just wiping my fingers to make sure I don't have any ink on my hands. And I'm just going to keep checking. I'm going to get very compulsive about checking my fingers to make sure I don't have any ink on my hands. And I'm going to try to pull slowly. That way, if I see any spots I may have missed. Then if I see any spots that I missed, I can place it back down and then go over it again. I also don't want to splatter any ink, so that's kind of why I pulled slow. So there's our time to eat. So I'm just going to dry it real quick, and I'm only drying it enough to make it to where I can move it without smearing it. Typically, I like to let my ink projects dry overnight to make sure that the ink is completely dry before I heat set the ink. It's really easy to heat set. You can use a home iron and a piece of parchment paper or like a light pillowcase or a light sheet of material. And you just want to move your iron around the image for about 4 minutes on and set your iron's temperature to the recommended fabric setting that you're using. Or you can use an easy press or a heat press. And that heat setting is 305 for about 30 to 40 seconds per side. I can show you. None of that made sense. Here's some heat set instructions. So you just want to heat your heat setting ink on fabric, your home iron on medium or set to the fabric that you're heat setting. Use small circular motions for about 4 minutes per side. If using a heat press or an easy press, you set it to 305 for 30 seconds, and you can use parchment paper as a barrier. And I'll usually do heat set both sides. I just want to get this to where I can move it without smearing it all over the place. And just be careful with whatever you're dry. If you're using like a heat tool or a heat gun to dry your ink, you want to remove your ink mat before doing that. My little dryer doesn't get hot enough to bubble up my ink mat or my Cricut mat, so we're good. So there's the time to eat. I'm just gonna fold that up and set it to the side, and I will heat press it probably in the next couple of days. So then we'll do another mint green one. I have the tag at the top, so let's do it the same way. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just gonna try to find the center point. So I just folded my napkin in half and I'm creasing it on the fold line. Of course, I probably won't be able to see it, but I know where it's at in relation to my mat, so we're good. So again, I'm using the sticky part of the mat to kind of help flatten my material. If you need to, you can iron ahead of time, but who has time for that? Gotta be careful with my ink that's laying over there. Okay, so let's do I think we'll do this one next. This Meals and Memories Made Here. Maybe. Yeah, we'll just do this one. So I'm not going to fuss this one, remember, because I want a really good adhesion. But I am going to try to find the center of this. So I'm doing the same thing. I'm just kind of lining up the design end to end. And I'm just going to put a fold crease right here so I can kind of see where my middle is. And then I'm going to give the transfer a really good burnish so I make sure that that silk screen is good and adhered to the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to grab my ink. I'm just going to use it out of the lid because there's quite a bit in the lid. So I'm just putting it on my squeegee, making sure I don't have anything on my fingers. And I'm just going to pull in one direction with a light touch. And you just kind of, when you're inking, you kind of want to watch and see how the ink absorbs into your fabric. You may have to go over it again, depending on how it absorbs. Just grabbing some more. Okay. And I want to kind of even out my squeegee lines, making sure the transfer is all covered. Checking my fingers to make sure I don't have any ink. Checking again. And now I'm going to peel slowly. One, I don't want to splatter the ink, and two, if I see a spot that may need some more coverage, I can lay my transfer back down and fix it before I pull it completely off. Like there's a spot on the D. Okay, that one's good. So I'm just going to dry it so that I can move it without smudging it. I'm going to put the lid on this so I don't get it all over me. So who else tired after the time change? If you live where you get to experience time changes, do you love them? Do you hate them? I'm glad to see the extra daylight, but I wish they'd just pick one or the other and stick with it. I don't like all this switching back and forth. It's still slightly wet, but we're going to go on. So I'm going to peel it up gently. So show you up close. So here's the Meals and Memories Made Here. So we'll set that one up there. And we'll move on to these lavender ones, which I think the only reason I bought these is they were on sale. Everyone knows that I just love purple, but somebody will like them, so that's kind of why I got them. Lots of people out there like purple, but I don't. So I'm just placing it on my ink mat. This kind of, again, helps flatten out my fabric. It keeps it in place. It keeps it from moving around. And it acts as a barrier for any ink that may bleed through the back. So let's put my lid on this one. Okay, so next we're going to use the Good Eats off of this transfer. If I can get it off. Okay. So again, I'm going to find the middle. So I'm lining up the edge of the G with the edge of the D. And that'll kind of get me in a guesstimated center. I got a YouTube troll. Okay. And and you'll notice I did not fuzz because I want the transfer as sticky as possible so that my ink does not bleed under the transfer. And I'm just making sure that it's good and burnished. Now we're going to go with the black. Here's just making sure that's not. I have one black that's really runny, which I think that one's it. So I'm going to get a different one because that one is a little thinner than I prefer. So let's get a different black. I need to put some cornstarch in that one. That's better. Much better. Okay, so I'm just getting a little bit of black on my squeegee, making sure I don't have any on my fingers. And I'm just going to glide my squeegee and that ink down my towel, trying to only go one direction. Very light touch, not pressing very hard. So now I'm just kind of evening out my squeegee lines. Put the excess back in my jar, checking my fingers. Checking my fingers again. And I'm going to pull it up slowly so I can check for any spots that may not have good coverage. But keep in mind, this particular transfer has a lot of distress points, meaning There are point spots in this silk screen that are meant to be distressed, so it's not gonna have good coverage because it's purposely distressed. So I pulled it slowly. I'm going to try to dry it just so that I can move it. Get that out of my way. Feels dry, so I'm going to peel it off carefully. And I will, like I said before, I will let these dry overnight before I heat set them. So there's our good eats. We have one more. And then I'll show you how easy it is to wash the transfers. So I'm just finding my center so I can place it on my ink mat. And I'm just going to smooth out my fabric. The ink mat's sticky enough that it's going to help hold down my fabric. It's going to help flatten out all those wrinkles. It's going to keep, thanks Jason. It's going to keep that ink, any ink that may soak through the back, off of my desk, or if you were using a t-shirt, it would keep it off of the back side of your t-shirt. So I'm just pulling off the other image, and we're just going to use this fork and spoon. I'm going to line up the design just to kind of get a rough center point. So I'm going to pinch right here, and then I'm going to line that up with the center of my towel or napkin. And then I'm going to burnish it really well to make sure the transfer is really stuck down to that fabric. That I don't have any bubbles, that all my edges are sealed. So then I'm going to grab my squeegee again and some ink, because we're using ink this evening and not chalk paste. Checking my fingers. And I'm just going to, because this has a lot of silk screen, I'm going to use a really light touch so I don't accidentally bubble that silk screen material as I pull my silk screen, or as I pull my transfer down. If I press too hard, I may put a little wrinkle in that silk screen, and that's when you get bubbles and bleeds. And I'm just kind of making sure that I've got good coverage because this black has really seeped into the fabric. Okay, so I'm going to put my excess back into the jar. I'm going to put my lid on. I'm going to set all of that out of the way. Check my fingers. I did have a little bit on my fingertip. And check my fingers again. And now I'm going to pull this off slowly. There's our fork and spoon. Okay, so let's dry this just so I can move it out of the way without smearing it. And in less than 45 minutes, we've made 4 custom fabric napkins. You can make dish towels. You can make with flour sack towels. You could make dish towels with decorative towels, blankets, pillowcases, t-shirts, aprons, hot pads. I'm just drying this enough so that I can move it, but I will let all of the towels or napkins dry overnight, and then I will heat set them after they're all dry. So these are the ones we've made so far. That's pretty dry. So I'm just going to peel this off of my ink mat. So there is our fork and spoon. And then just a little bit came through my ink mat, but it'll dry. I'm just going to stick this right back on it. Put that away. And then I want to show you real quick how easy it is to clean the transfers. I'm going to make sure and put these up and out of the way. I'm going to put these behind me because I will inevitably splash water all over them because that's how I roll. So I'm just placing these behind me so they can dry. So then I'm just going to lay out a towel. And then as I've gotten through with the transfer, I've just put it in some water I don't recommend leaving them in water for a long period of time. But you could use a tub like this. You can use a utility sink, a kitchen sink, a bathroom sink, your tub, your shower. You just need a water source of some sort. And I'm just kind of scrubbing this one on the bottom of the tub so I can get some of that ink off. And it's the same way with paste. I'm also grabbing a board eraser. These work great to clean your boards, but they also work great to clean your transfers. I'm just going to get that ink off of the top side. This board eraser is about ready to fall apart. And then I'm going to grab the disinfecting wipe. I'm going to clean the back side. And this helps to get any fuzzies off that the transfer may have pulled up when I pulled it off of the towel. So then you can leave it dry, sticky side up for about 5 or 10 minutes. But I tend to forget that I have transfers drying. So I'm just going to stick it right back on the backer sheet and I'll let it dry there. Then we'll grab our next one. Same thing, get all that ink off of the top side. You just want to make sure that your silk screen is clean. Some of the inks and pastes may stain just because of the high pigmentation, like your reds, your greens. Those have a lot of pigmentation to them, so they will most likely stain, but it doesn't hurt the functionality of your transfer. We've got that one. So I'm going to flip it over. And because I wrote the names on the back sides, I know which backer sheet goes with what. And I know which side is the top side. So I have one more. I'm going to peel all of this tape off because I don't need it. Let me go ahead and, that board eraser is about ready to fall apart. And I usually use them till they're in pieces. So every time I would recommend every time you place an order that you add on 1 or 2 packages of board erasers, except I do think that they're out of stock right now because they're great to clean your boards and your transfers. Okay. And so just let those continue to dry. I think I put a squeegee in here. Just get that clean off my black one. And I am all finished. I just have to go dump out my water and I will be all cleaned up. In less than 45 minutes, I've designed 4 napkins and I have cleaned up and I'm good to go. Wham bam, easy peasy. So if you're short on time, if you want to make crafts but you're afraid of the mess, I highly recommend Chalk Couture. So fun little project. Let's bring some of our towels back in. I'll just have them laying all over the place back here. So we've got our time to eat. And this one is one of the new transfers from the spring launch. We've got meals and memories made here. we have Good Eats, and we have our fork and our spoon. Super easy little project. And let's do a little bit of housekeeping. I just want to remind you about our Club Couture transfer. It is the Farm Words, so it is this 8.5 by 11 size B exclusive transfer. The only way to get it is by being a Club Couture member or by being a designer. It comes with this cute little Fisher-Price. No, it's not a Fisher-Price barn. It reminds me of the Fisher-Price barn. So it comes with this cute little barn. It comes with the word home, and then you can add on home sweet, farm fresh, simply blessed, and then it also comes with a windmill and a little floral accent. As a Club Couture member, you get this exclusive size B transfer and 3 chalk paste singles. This month it is Candy Apple, Eucalyptus, and Storm. That is $19.99 a month. There is a 3-month minimum commitment to join, but you can cancel at any time after your 3 months. And as a Club Couture member, you also get $4.95 flat rate shipping on any additional chalk site order. Let me show you. This is one of the projects we did 2 weeks ago with the Farm Words transfer. This is on the new white 5x7 board and base. Super cute. Put the little windmill in the corner. I just think it reminds me of the 1970s version of the Fisher-Price barn and silo. It looks just like it. And then as a Club Couture member this month, you are able to get the bunny cutout pattern transfer for 50% off as a Club Couture member. So that's a cute size C transfer. It comes with, you get 4 different bunny shapes. Some have a flower design inset, some have some text design inset. So super cute perk for being a Club Couture member. Also, one of the other perks for signing up this month, this is the typical designer kit. It is $99. It is $240 worth of product, again at $99. So if you have any questions or if you have any interest in ever becoming a designer, just let me know. But as a designer this month, as a new designer, you get the bird cutouts and the bird cutout patterns included in your kit. That's an additional I believe it's an additional $40 value added to your kit. So great month to either join as a Club Couture member or a designer. Hello, Miss Ashley. How are you doing this evening? I hope you're doing well. We made some fabric napkins. So I made Good Eats. We made the spoon and the fork, and these are just cute little fabric napkins. I thought they were dish towels, but they ended up being fabric napkins, but they're super cute. And then I have 2 mint colored ones, Meals and Memories Made Here and Time to Eat. So I think they turned out cute. So I will let those dry overnight, and then I will heat set them. And then we'll have some cute little napkins to put in my booth space, either at CJ's or at my next vendor event. Ashley says she's doing good. I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. I took a break for 2 to 3 weeks and then celebrated my 99th and 100th episodes. And then last week was 4 12-hour days, so I'm pooped. But it's good to be back. It's good to be crafting again. It's good to have a little bit of normalcy. However, I do have another work commitment on Wednesday evening, so I will not be live until Friday. And I'm changing my time up a little bit just to take advantage of these longer evenings. So I'll be live again at 7:15 on a Friday. And then I'm going to be live a little earlier on Saturday because I do have a class on Saturday afternoon at my house. If you want any information about that, just put class down in the comments. If you live locally to me, that is. So I'll be live again on Saturday at 10:30, I think, is when I scheduled that. So I put my schedule for the week on my Facebook page. It's a pinned comment. And again, just a reminder, I do have the access to stars. Don't feel obligated to send stars, but just know that anytime you want to contribute to my channel, I will be donating any proceeds to stars to charitable organizations like Watts of Love. And I shared a little bit about that in the beginning, but I will definitely be sharing more about that in the coming weeks. So keep that in mind. With that, I'm going to hop off for the evening. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you on Friday. Thanks for watching.